Welcome to 5 Minute Fridays. My name is Jim Putnam. These are videos that I do each week that are just kind of relevant to whatever's going on that time of year in gardening. And this one is all about plant shopping. So this is, I'm shooting this at the end of January, and for a lot of you watching this video, it might be 15 degrees outside or less, and you may be snow covered or whatever and go, what the heck is Jim talking about plant shopping for at the end of January? I'm not necessarily talking about going and buying plants for your garden right now. What I am talking about is that a lot of folks have been on the lookout for a lot of things. I get a ton of questions on this channel about where can I find this? Where can I find that? How do I get this? This is a great time of year to go to a local garden center and check with them and see if they can find the things that you've been looking for your garden. And this is, I'm currently just talking about plants in general. We'll talk about some other things in a minute that you can also acquire this time of year potentially, or be asking for this time of year. But one of the main things is that I just went to a big nursery trade show in Baltimore 2 weeks ago. And then the very next week is Green and Growing in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is the North Carolina Nursery Trade Show. There's nursery trade shows in Florida and Texas and all over the country. And these garden centers travel to these shows this time of year, and they are able to find new vendors, see new things. And while it's fresh on their minds, you may, go and check with them and say, hey, is there any possibility that you can find this particular abelia or this particular crepe myrtle or this particular shrub that I've been looking for a while? And it may be fresh on their mind, having just seen it somewhere. Or this is also the time of year when the salespeople for the nurseries are hot and heavy, moving through the country, trying to visit them. Because this is a time of year people can actually sit down and have a conversation, in an office. It's hard to, or a nursery salesperson to come on April 15th to a garden center and get their attention for any length of time. So this is a time of year when they're just seeing these things. So if you've been on the hunt for something, this is the time of year to go to your local garden center and say, hey, I'm looking for 5 of these. You may also introduce them to a new vendor in some way. Maybe they weren't planning on ordering from this other vendor that they had happened to meet, but you are going to help them meet some sort of requirement that, shipping requirement that's, maybe it's $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, a material that they have to get an order from this place. You may be helping them with that. And so again, I just think it's a great time of year to be thinking about planning the garden and then knowing where you're going to be able to acquire those things later before they disappear. And you're just running out on the first warm day in April to go buy something. It's not necessarily going to be there, the thing that you're actually looking for. The other thing you'll run into this time of year, and I put up last week about last week's 5-minute video was about acquiring trays and seeds and starter mix for your seeding operations. Those things are going to be available on shelves everywhere right now. All of those things that are required. You're going to see some tropical bulbs and tropical things start showing up too, things that you're not necessarily going to put in the ground, but these are the types of things we put on the weekly garden planner about, seasonally about shopping. There's lots of videos on the weekly garden planner about shopping. This is one of the things I like to point out is that if you see something, grab it, but then, it's not necessarily time to put it in the ground. So you're going to be looking at how that works. You're going to see a lot of bare root things, maybe bare root roses, bare root, a lot of fruit plants, grapes and figs and all kinds of things. Again, it's not necessarily going to be the time of year to put them in the ground. But if you see something, you want it, go ahead and acquire it. You're going to see elephant ear bulbs. Definitely not the time of year to put those in the ground unless you're where I'm at right now in a mangrove and on the Keys. Maybe you would be putting that in the ground, but not in Raleigh, North Carolina. But I want to go ahead and acquire it because I can find really good ones right now if it's something that I want. So any kind of summer bulb, those things are going to be available now. And again, you can get them and keep them for the rest of the season. Or if there's there's something you're on the lookout for, this is a great time of year to be searching that thing out. A couple of other things you may think about acquiring this time of year. One, if you've had ice storms near you or any kind of wind events or anything like that, there's a lot of tree work going on. Potentially, this is a good time of year to get wood chips delivered to you. If you can hear chainsaws off in the distance somewhere, and we have that in Raleigh occasionally where we get a big windstorm and then we see tree guys all over the neighborhood for a little while. That's a great time of year to be on the Chip Drop website getting wood chips. You don't necessarily have to use them, but if you have a place to get them dumped, you know, this is a good time of year to do that. If you're going to be getting a load of mulch in the spring and you're going to be getting it from a landscape yard, the landscape yards will definitely prioritize landscapers calling on the same day over a homeowner calling on the same day, because they do business with that person. You know, it's a big business for them. That landscaper that orders 4 loads a week from them or 3 loads a week from them, they're always going to prioritize them. I don't blame them for doing that. But if you call on April 15th and you want mulch on April 17th, that's unlikely, right? So you can go ahead and potentially pay some deposit on your mulch delivery for April and go ahead and get on that list. And then any other hardscape things you want, if there's a particular bagged product that you've seen somewhere, that's another thing you can ask at the garden center, whether they can order that or not, because most of them order from some sort of supply house. We ordered, there's a company called Wyatt Quarles in Garner, North Carolina, and when I worked at Rakenhoe Garden Center, we got all of our materials from them. We didn't order everything they had, you know, and stocked everything they had on the shelf, but there were things, literally every week I unloaded that Wyatt Quarles truck twice a week, and I would say 10 to 15% of what was on that truck was special orders from customers, because customers knew that we could get things that we don't necessarily have on the shelf. So keep that in mind as well. Feel free to ask at your local garden center for things, because again, they have a source for it. They just don't necessarily have shelf space for it on a week-to-week basis. So there you go. I just wanted to point that out. This is actually a good time of year to not only be planning, but also having a conversation with your local garden center about acquiring some of the things that you're interested in. Nurseries have definitely, you know, filled in a bit more than they were the last 3 or 4 years, because, you know, the new COVID gardeners, which 20-some million people picked up gardening during COVID, and they've stuck with it more than I thought they would. I was like, oh, this thing's going to drop off immediately, and it hasn't. But the nurseries have responded, and now we're seeing more supply out there. So some of the things you may have been hunting for that you've given up on may become available this spring. So thank you guys so much for watching the channel.